Good morning and welcome to the regular meeting of the Town of Qualicum Beach. The first item, as we usually do, is we recognize the territory of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Qualicum First Nation. So welcome. Adoption of the agenda. There's one item, late adder, under item 9.1H. This is about the Vancouver Island Commercial Building Award Ceremony. This is for the skateboard park. Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, then the agenda is adopted by consent. We have the consent agenda. Are there any items council wish to debate? Then the consent agenda is approved by consent. Business items on the minutes, delegations. We have 3 delegations, and it's a great pleasure to introduce the first one, which is Tom Osborne, from the manager of Parks Recreation. And I'm wearing this piece of green ribbon because that was the ribbon that we cut when we opened Hamilton Marsh. So well done, Tom. I think we all owe you gratitude. You were, I'd say determined is not the right word. You were like a fiend going after this company and getting to agree on this deal. And it's a wonderful attraction. I think it's about 900 acres. It's about the size of Stanley Park. And the RDN got it. It's for the benefit of the current population, but also for future generations and all the wildlife and water infrastructure that we need. So thank you on behalf of council and staff and the public for what you did there. And you're up first.
Well, thank you, Mayor Westbroek, for the very kind words, and it's a pleasure to be here today in front of Town of Qualicum Beach Council. I'm first of 3 presentations, and I get to speak today about our Regional Parks and Trails program and where we've come and where are we going as the regional district in that program. So first, I'll paint a little bit picture. What is RDN Parks and Trails? And there's actually 2 systems in place. One is a community park system, and another one is a regional park system. The community parks is we are the manager, owner, and provider of community parks in the rural areas. So we have 7 rural areas in the regional district, and within that system, we have just over 200 community parks and trails there in that system. Independent budgets, same staff, we do share across the board in regards to how we provide those services. Then we move over to the regional parks system, and that is funded by all the municipalities and the rural areas, and it's everyone's in for the greater good, for intended purpose, because the parks are being used by everyone in a region. Even if that park is outside of a municipal boundary, such as Hamilton Marsh, there's a benefactor to that. So with that, you can see on the slide here sort of the differences between the 2 systems and how they form. So the regional district, as you well know, is a very long and skinny regional district, but very populated as well too. And this slide that I have in front of us here shows sort of the expanse of the Parks and Trails system. So it goes all the way from Bowser down to Cassidy, and over to Gabriola, Mudge Island, and to Corsi Island as well too. And that's where we have community parks across that system, but also some regional parks within that realm. And also we have a very extensive regional trail system that links up the systems within municipalities, and obviously the Town of Qualicum Beach has a great trail system, and we have the Parcel Coombs Trail and other trails that ultimately will align with that in the years ahead. So our regional parks, what does that look like? Well, thank you, Mayor Westbroek. There's now 13 as about 2 weeks ago in the system, and expands about 2,500 hectares in property. So the largest one that we have is Mount Arrowsmith, which is a great backdrop for approximately 1,300 hectares in size. And the smallest one is Beachcomber Regional Park, one of the original ones in the regional district, but it's a beautiful waterfront park site that we manage for everyone. So there's a list. You can see Beachcomber, Benson Creek Falls, and I'll walk you through a little bit of a nature walk at the end of my presentation. So that shows the list there. Oh, there you go. As mentioned before, we also have a pretty extensive regional trail system, about 85 kilometers of regional trails. Most local one is obviously the Parcel Coombs Trail, but there's also interesting trails and paths that we have to work with, and that's one is the Parcel Qualicum links that links Parksville and Qualicum. Actually, when Chartwell was brought into the Qualicum Beach, he actually brought in part of the linkage connections as part of that system, and now when that took place, Qualicum Beach is actually the steward of that connection of that Parksville Qualicum link. I now call this the hockey stick diagram. You can see where the regional parks started and where we are today. So really in the early 90s, Beachcomber was one of the first ones, and you can see over time parks were added, Vincent Creek Falls and others. The biggest leap that you see there is Mount Arrowsmith. It was a fairly significant 10-year acquisition we worked with the province on, and that took place. Then when more recent times, Moorcroft, sorry, look at Councillor Skipsey because home is Skipsey Lake, so there's some legacy within that park, within the room here as well too. Little Qualicum River additions were added on, and then most recently, of course, with the, I love the green, and I'm colorblind. It looks really good on you, Mayor Westbrook, but we have Hamilton Marsh that was just brought on board. So the acquisition criteria, there is always some people that are curious about that. There is an acquisition list. Obviously, there's some in-camera conversations and lists that we have to work to, and a lot of the work that I get to do is sometimes very quiet. You don't know what's taking place until it's announced or will be announced. With that, there is acquisition list that goes right back to 1995. It's then updated, refined, and so forth. At times, there is opportunities that do come up that that sort of meet the criteria and it fits our the suitability as a regional park, and then that's then added, and then staff are asked to pursue securing the site. So I won't go too much on this slide for the essence of time, but this is all that our staff do. So just securing land is one thing, but there's land management that goes with that, programming on the sites. We have two campgrounds as well, Horn Lake and on Gabriel at Descansel Bay. So we're in the campground operation business. These are pretty extensive properties. We have a very large community with a lot of people in it. So a big part of our job is actually planning for or planning to how to manage sites. And oftentimes, I'll look at Englishman River, for example, it could be loved and loved too much. So we have to sort of look at how that site is managed, or all our sites are managed and managed carefully as well too. So adapting to a very growing, rapidly growing community. Now time for the nature walk. I've got a few minutes to go through it. So I'll go a little bit local here. This is one of our first conservation areas, Little Qualicum River conservation areas. On this site here is a picture of that. The Parcel Qualicum links, one of the features of that trail is actually the Top Ridge Regional Trail. So it actually links a city of Parksville Park on one side and the RDM Park on the other side, Nature Trust of BC Lands and Englishman River Regional Park. But that was a great day for the regional district when that link was actually put into place. There you go. Englishman River, more local. This is actually owned by a series of property owners, Nature's Trust of BC, Ducks Unlimited, Promise of BC, and a few others. The RDN manages on behalf of all those property owners, and there's a long-term lease in for 99 years to manage as a regional park site. So that's one of the how we secure or manage that site. The trail system, some are front country. Parcel of Coombs Trail is what you see here, and then there's an image there of the CPR trail, and that's the historic trail. So you up to Mount Coakley, actually, and it comes down from the chalet at the base. Very popular trail, so when you're going to Cathedral Grove, you'll see a lot of cars on the left-hand side. Those are people that are busting their lungs heading up the hill to get to the top there for a great view. Hamilton Marsh, that was the most recent acquisition that we brought on board, and a lot of good efforts that went there. To make these properties happen, we obviously have to work very closely with a variety of agencies, in this case, the Province of BC, Nature Trust of BC, Nanaimo Area Land Trust, Hamilton Marsh and Wetlands Forest Preservation Society, and the Mount Aerosmith Biosphere Reserve, Ducks Unlimited, and the list goes on kind of thing. Beachcomber Regional Park, if you ever get a chance, beautiful site, smaller park, very tranquil. If you want to sort of see what I call floating rocks out there at the right tide, it looks like some of the boulders are actually floating. So if you want to have some zen time, I highly recommend it. Amalite Falls. This was a challenging site for us, but it's a very beautiful site. Well loved, well cared for. Before those stairs were put in place, people would literally rappel themselves down to the falls. But with some grants and funding in place, we were able to secure that site. Mount Benson, one of, I call them the humps. We have Mount Aerosmith, you have Mount Benson, and a few other mountains that within the system. This is one of our more popular parks and heavily used. Equal to the grouse grind. It often gets compared to the grouse grind. If you're on Vancouver Island, this is where you'll be to head up the hill. Coates Marsh Regional Park, another marsh within the system. This one's on Gabriel Island, and also over on Gabriel Island is the Scoundrel Bay Regional Park, which is a campground. And Nanaimo River, you'll see that on a slide. It was one of the first ones that we took on with another trust. Nature Trust of BC is the land owner on this one. And this is our mighty parks team. So we have roughly around 18 staff people that are boots on the ground and planning or meeting with the people. So these folks are overseeing the 213 plus community parks and trails and regional parks, plus the planning that goes along with it. And with that, I think I did okay. So I'll invite the next person up and we can see if we get through, or however, Mary, you want to handle questions.
Thank you, Tom. We'll wait for the question. Maybe while you're there, we can ask any questions from Council. Councillor Harrison?
So just briefly, there was a little walkthrough a little while ago for Hamilton Marsh. And I missed the official unveiling, so I attended that instead. And some of the folks who were there were some of the key volunteers who were involved. And folks asked, is there anyone in particular who is really key to helping the volunteers secure the property? And the one name that came up right away was yours, was Tom Osborne. So just to let you know that it is pretty well known in the community, the amount of work you put in for that one property. And I eagerly look forward to hearing about how the long-term vision of Hamilton Marsh is going to be developed. I know there's basically a committee that'll be formed, mixture of volunteers and some other folks, and just planting a flag. Less is more. There is actually too much access sometimes can actually be detrimental for the environment. So I know Vancouver is dealing with that with some of their parks where they're so popular now it's actually pushing away the wildlife. So it's wonderful that we've got it, and what we have right now is actually pretty good. So kudos, Tom, for all your hard work.
Great. Thank you very much for the comments. And again, I've been very fortunate to have a really neat job to do some pretty helping the community advance and adapt as well too, so thank you for that. As far as the property management, there will be a management plan that will start off in 2027. I think it's important for council and others to be aware that, you know, there's actually two lots on site. Lot A, or the Marsh lot, that was bought by the regional district. And we actually share title with the Nature Trust of BC on that. And then there's the forest lot. For the Marsh lot, it actually has funding that came from we'll call NAWCA, North American Wildlife, trying to get my C screwed up, but I will say the Climate Conservation Act. And it's actually to do with migratory birds. And so with that, there is conditions that came with that funding that will actually in and see nature, but the primary purpose is to ensure there's the conservation on that particular lot. And then, as Mayor Westbrook noted, I mean, this is just shy of the size of Stanley Park. There is also forest lots. So with careful planning, dialogue with the partners that we work with and the community as well, feedback will be provided and will shape the management plan in the years ahead.
Thank you to you and your team.
Great.
please pass on our appreciation for all the work they do.
I sure will. And I have to say, we have a great team,
Yeah.
the best professional bunch I've ever worked with.
And
encourage
senior
that.
staff too, Mr. Holmes and others
Yeah.
that were part of the whole discussion to make this happen.
Great, thank you. Well, again, thank you all for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. And next is Darren. Go ahead, Transit.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Council. I'm Darren Marshall, Senior Manager, Transportation Services, joined by Christina Crabtree, General Manager, Corporate and Transportation Services. Thank you for the opportunity to present an update on the Regional District of Nanaimo's Transportation Services, Transit. Today's presentation will cover progress and plans for the RDN Transit overall, and including expansion, operations, improvements, and sustainability initiatives, all guided by the Transit Redevelopment Strategy. The Transit Redevelopment Strategy was adopted in early 2022 and is a phased plan with later year expansion subject to deferral through BC Transit's rolling Transit Improvement Program process. For Qualicum Beach, next planned transit redevelopment strategies are 12, 13, and 14, currently targeted for 2030 and potentially shifting to 2031. Strategies 12 and 13 increase frequency on the number 9 intercity, while strategy 14 explores revised routing, including Route 88 and integration with Route 97 to improve service efficiency and coverage. Our transit system has rebounded strongly since the pandemic with increases in ridership and revenue. As shown, conventional transit passenger trips table, we have increased over the entire system by approximately 450,000 annual trips. Custom transit has increased by 3,830 trips year over year. The town of Qualicum Beach's transit service has maintained consistent ridership in handy-dart and conventional transit. Conventional transit. Comparable data will be available from BC Transit in about a month. However, Qualicum Beach is currently averaging 825 daily trips across 4 routes. BC Transit is also piloting an on-demand transit system service model that will could be included in future options for routes 97 and 98. Subject to further evaluation and local service planning considerations. Custom Handy-Dart has consistent ridership over the past 3 years, averaging approximately 876 trips annually. Recent projections suggest ridership in 2026 will remain stable in the range of high 700s to mid 800s. A report on free fare transit for youth aged 18 and under was initially presented to the Committee of the Whole for information, with final approval at the April 14th, 2026 regular RDN board meeting. The board directed staff to implement a free fare transit program for all youth 18 and under, with a review to be conducted at the end of the program's second year to evaluate outcomes and inform decisions on continued funding. Next steps include coordination with BC Transit on implementation considerations. No implementation date has been set. However, September 6th is being considered to align with the school District 68 and 69 when they go back to school in the fall. Also approved at the April 14th board meeting was the Eco Pass. This is a BC Transit supported program that allows organizations to prepay into a transit fund that provides eligible users and unlimited access to transit with revenue recognized as trips are taken, similar to other stored value fare products. For the town of Qualicum Beach, the Eco-Pass can be implemented through local development approvals or organizational agreements supporting mode shift and parking management objectives while ensuring all user-based revenue continues to flow to the RDN transit system. In 2026, we will continue to work with BC Transit to introduce battery electric buses, infrastructure at the RDN Transit facility, and integrate 10 heavy-duty battery electric buses into the fleet in early 2027. BC Transit is also trialing light-duty battery electric buses for Handy Dart service in View Royal Victoria area. The results of that trial will be shared at a later date. We have a clear timeline for next steps with a focus on transit services and battery electric bus planning in collaboration with BC Transit and a possible further Southern Transit expansion in 2028. We're also committed to ongoing engagement with the RDN board and community. We look forward to working together to ensure transit continues to meet the town of Qualicum Beach's present and future needs. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Questions, Mr. Marshall? Councillor Harrison.
Just a couple of questions, and just one point. It might be just for your benefit. I was recently looking over the quality of life survey results, and for satisfaction with services, the #1 improvement was actually with public transportation. It was an 18-point improvement from the previous quality of life survey, so I'm not sure what you're doing, but apparently some folks like it. I just had one question. There was, previously I was the liaison for the Tourism Association, and in summertime in Coombs is always very busy, and there's lots of cars, and there's lots of folks who are staying on Resort Drive or in town who are going to Coombs. And historically, we haven't been able to set up a loop because Area F was not interested in having transit services. Is there any discussion of potentially having a sort of a looped service like that to reduce the number of cars that are being parked in Coombs in the future? Or is this maybe not something we're looking at present?
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Harrison. Thank you for the question. So we're currently following the transit redevelopment strategy, which does not, it recommends a certain type of on-demand service for Area F, but it only recommends it. We don't have any plans to implement transit service there. But if we do have a policy where if a society or a vendor or someone's offering an event that's open to everybody in the public, we have a policy that if it meets that, they could apply for shuttle service. So that could be maybe one of the options that could be looked at, and I'd be happy to discuss that further if that was of interest.
I may? Just to sort of follow up, because historically, some of the larger hotels have had discussions about shuttle service informally with the head of the Tourism Association, and I'm not sure where exactly that's gone. I know temporarily there's been some shuttle services that have been offered in our area, but it is an expense, and I remember looking at when my neighbors for my mom and dad's house are one's from Manchester, one's from Tehran, and the husband was looking at getting a job as a bus driver in the area because that actually pays surprisingly well.
Yes.
So yeah, I know it's not as cheap as you think it is to run a bus service. So
yeah,
it was one thing that I wish we could do that and just have a few fewer cars on the road and a few more people getting on a bus, but perhaps one day. Thanks so much for your answers. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Skipsey.
Thank you for your presentation. And I had attended a session at UBCM last fall where they were talking about the on-demand system, and I certainly thought that might be a solution for our community. So I'm glad to see that conversation is continuing. And I also just wanted to mention that I have a son who is attending VIU and commutes by bus on a daily basis from Qualicum Beach to Nanaimo. It takes him between an hour and a half to 2 hours each each way, depending on the connections. So I don't know if we ever look at that kind of system and the connectivity for ridership. And then I guess my other thing would be about the eco-pass and whether that's something that, like, you would be having conversations with the university about maybe being a participant, because I do believe other universities do offer their students. They collect a fund from everybody and then provide the services if students are interested. So,
Thank you, Councillor Skipsey. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Skipsey. Thank you. I believe it's for VIU, it would be the U-Pass. And we have had some discussions. They're not quite ready to introduce that at the university at this time, but we are continuing that conversation. And maybe in the future that will be an option as well. And sorry, to your first question was, VIU, yes. So as I mentioned, I believe it's strategy 12 and 13 is increasing more frequency on Route 9, which is the connectivity it gets to Woodgrove, and then we connect 15s directly to VIU. And so that strategy from the transit redevelopment strategy would be something that would increase would help reduce the times getting to the VIU from Qualicum Beach. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
I'm just wondering, I noticed that the ridership on bus number 97 for Eagle Crest and bus number 98 for Qualicum Beach is fairly low. Is it still economically viable to be having this service, or do we need to promote more ridership? I'm just wondering.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Young. Thank you for the question. I mentioned earlier on-demand transit. It's a different model of transit. It's kind of a hybrid between Handy Dart and fixed route with you call in and book a ride, and the computer in the bus builds out a route and picks you up at a predetermined location that you would find either on your computer or you were told where to stand if you phoned in, or on your phone. So the ridership is low, but it's still sustainable. It is recognized that it is low with some of my discussions with BC Transit, and we're happy to hear that they trialed on-demand in Kelowna and have now introduced it at 2 other locations. And so it's something that we're going to be exploring further in the near future. And it also, in the transit redevelopment strategy, does recommend for certain areas to introduce it. So, yeah.
I'm just wondering, is it promoted like at the senior center and other areas in Qualicum Beach so that people do know about it? Because I haven't heard about it myself.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Young. Thank you again for the question. I'd have to confirm that. I'm not familiar with how we've marketed it at that location.
Thank you. The Eco-Pass. We're getting some new developments coming up, and we're also having sometimes a parking in uptown Qualicum Beach problem. How could this affect new development and transportation issues through the Eco-Pass?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to you for your question. This would be an option for the developer to forego parking stalls and offer the residents unlimited access to transit versus cars. So it would be something for the city to connect with BC Transit and see what works best for each development.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and I know it's difficult to get people out of their cars, so I think the easier we can make it for people, the better. I'm just wondering if there's any network that connects different parts of the island, because it's very car driving oriented, and there's no, as far as I know, no great service that can get, for example, from Qualicum Beach to Victoria. Is there any overall island consideration of that or network for that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Vander. So currently we do have two interregional connections. One in the north that connects at Deep Bay on the 99 with the number 10 to Courtney. So, and that's for the north. And then in the south, the RDN transit system operates the 70 Nanaimo Couch and Express. And it goes directly from the downtown Nanaimo to downtown Duncan. And then it connects with another express route, the 66, I believe it is, to Victoria. We did a small expansion on Sunday service, I believe, to connect on the 66 as well. So it's starting to build a lot of ridership. And the connection is getting better and better.
So just to follow up then, is it a very frequent service? Because my understanding is it's not, so it takes a long time to get where you're going.
Yeah. Your Worship, through you to Councillor Vander. So it is a long, narrow corridor. The RDN system is a long, narrow corridor, and then to get to Duncan is an hour. And then it's obviously probably another hour from Duncan to get to Victoria. Currently that is the quickest. It operates 9 runs a day during the week, and then Saturday it has 9 or 8 runs and reduced service on Sunday. But again, now it does connect on Sunday 7 days a week.
And we can turn the flashing red light off because you're invited, so you can talk a little longer. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, sorry, I just saw the flashing red light. And so one thing that's kind of a perennial thing that's being raised about transit in our area with our older population is the handy dart service. I did see the 5% increase in the most recent data, but is this something where you feel we're at capacity? And also too, for the benefit of the public, I think the RDN is one of the few jurisdictions where handy dart drivers are paid appropriately. Because I know that they get the same rate as a normal bus driver, and usually handy dart drivers get paid less. If I remember an RDN report from about 8 years ago, but kudos to you guys for giving them a fair wage. But is that something that we're seeing still demand in our area, or is that something where, in time it might be serviced later on?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Harrison. Handy dart services. Now that we've expanded a bit in the Oceanside area, services is better. It was very limited with one bus, and now with 2, services has grown. Yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of increase in ridership, so it's good. Yeah.
The last question is there was a volunteer service which I think was heavily changed a little while ago. But I know my mom and dad used it a lot to get to the hospital in Nanaimo, where it was a bunch of volunteers and they would just have a bus. I think it changed it so it's specifically cancer patients now. So is there any discussion about, I don't know if it would be handy dart or some other on-demand service to sort of fill in that gap for a lot of folks who have medical appointments in Nanaimo to basically go direct and through Parksville and Qualicum Beach, pick people up, and then take them to the hospital.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Harrison's question. That's a good question. So historically, we operated, we'd send a bus up and it would stay in the Oceanside area. We have allowed some medical ridership to Nanaimo and then bring them back. So we are starting to break that border down a little bit so that there is connectivity to more social and health facilities.
Just to plug that, because I know my parents would always say that it was basically always full when they'd make those trips down to Nanaimo. You did have to have like a half-hour to an hour window. It wasn't perfect for your appointments, but it was pretty busy. And they were, a lot of people were very concerned when it had a significant reduction, because that's the only way they could get funding to maintain operations. So thanks for that. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Now with the gas prices going up, there may be more interest in the bus service.
Yeah.
And thank you for what you're doing. And it's a very complicated system.
Yeah.
And I think you got a good handle on it, and you're always trying to make improvements. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you again, Your Worship.
And next we have Mr. Walters. Oh, somebody else. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Rob Wood. I'm the project manager for the French Creek Pollution Control Project. I'd like to give a quick update on the little project we're undertaking down the road that I'm sure you've all noticed on your drive down to Parksville. We are building an expansion to the French Creek Pollution Control Center. And I'll just go through quickly a few updates on the project and what it's all about. So there's a bit of background. The French Creek Pollution Control Center services about 29,000 people in this community, all the way from the north end of Qualicum Beach to the south end of Parksville. The expansion project goals are shown here. The main driver for the expansion is to service growth in the community. So we're increasing the plant capacity by 30%. The plant is coming on about 50 years of age, so there's a lot of things inside that need upgrading and replacement. We're working on that as part of the expansion project. Odor is probably the biggest thing that I hear about from the community, and the expansion project will address that. The expansion project will address the odor. As part of it, to meet the RDN's sustainability goals and carbon neutrality, goal of being carbon neutral by 2032, we're implementing solar panels on the roof of the new process building, as well as a heat recovery system from the final effluent of the plant to heat the building. I'm sure you all know where it is, but this just sort of shows a bit of an aerial view of the property. The property is bisected by Morningstar Creek. The existing plant is on the south side of the creek, and the expansion is on the north side. So obviously we've got to get all the infrastructure over to the across the creek to the north side where the expansion project is. And this is what it'll look like when it's complete. So components, I'll get into the schedule in just a sec, but just components of the project are, there's on the expansion site side, there's a new process building that'll house a new secondary treatment process. The existing plant will become just primary treatment. And we're also constructing a new lunchroom, change room, outbuilding next to Lee Road and beside the current administration building to house the additional operations staff that will be needed for the larger plant, and renovating the administration building to become more offices and things like that for those staff. So schedule-wise, construction on the expansion site will be complete this fall, and on In the plant, it'll be complete next summer with the final completion and overall operation of the plant up and running by fall 2027. Currently, we're about halfway through completion on the project, and we're on schedule. We elected to deliver this project in a different or from traditional kind of project delivery method. Traditionally, you would design it, you would send it out for bid, and then a contractor would build it. This project is rather complex, and we looked into different ways of delivering complex projects. IPD came up as the top runner, and we've been doing it now for a couple of years, so I just wanted to share about our experience with it. The model is a shared risk-reward model. So the owner, the engineer, the contractor are all in a contract together. The contractor and engineer are on the hook for their profit. It's at risk if they go over budget. The owner commits to ultimately paying for the entire cost of the project, but not necessarily the profit. And if there are any savings, those are shared amongst the parties. So there's good, I guess, incentive to drive down costs, but at the same time, delivering value. It's not a race to the bottom. And so, yeah, we chose this model because it's ideal for complex projects such as this one. The first step in IPD is called validation, where it's kind of like a pre-design stage where we all work together, the team works together to do enough design to be able to establish a budget with good certainty. And at the end of the validation process, it's a no-go decision for the owner if they would like to proceed or not proceed. The validation phase provides the owner with a high degree of cost certainty on the project because of the shared risk-reward model. And so far, our experience has been that, overall, it's been very excellent. It has been required a lot of effort from all of our staff, our operations staff, as well as our management staff. But that is certainly, I'd say, delivered dividends. We found a lot of cost savings through the project. I think we're going to get a better product at the end of the day because of all of our involvement in the design and construction. As I said, we've realized a lot of cost savings through the process, and there's a lot of trust and a high team morale, which has been built through being able to do the entire design process with the contractor involved. And that, I guess a bit surprisingly, has also seemed to trickle down into the construction crew, and the overall project's just really going quite well. So quite pleased with it all. And that's my update.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the Pollution Control Center? Councillor Harrison.
Just through you, this is much needed, and I'm very glad to see it's moving forward. Do you have a rough idea of what the total project cost is going to be for the all-in at the end of the day?
Yeah, the project budget's $143 million, and we're on budget so far.
And I just want to point out when people say, "Why are you building something now? Can't you just wait?" I was first elected 7 years ago, basically, and I remember at the time it was going to be about a $40 million project. And I know there's a lot of engineering standards that change. There's a lot of new, as you do any project, there's discoveries. So it's not anything wrong with the project as how it's being done, but just for the public's benefit, sometimes if we wait, it really drives up the cost. The only other thing too is kudos to the levels of government that got the grants. I think there's a $10 million plus federal grant and an $8 million plus provincial grant. So kudos to MLAs and MP for the work on that to make sure that we get our fair share of funds for that. It's a very needed project.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. And we also charge development cost charges. And often people tell us that you don't charge development cost charge because it will restrict development or house prices will go up too much. But this is what we need. This is why it's needed. It's not to improve our financial picture as a community, but it's to pay for these costs that, like you said, are triggered by the growth of development in our area. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Waters, you still going to speak? Okay, thank you. So normally I give liaison reports and committee reports and RDN reports, and you did a super job, so I don't have to say too much today. Thank you for making yourself available. You don't need to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to, but we really appreciate you coming for this event. Thank you. Thanks, Christina. Tax rates for first reading. We'll take them one at a time. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? If any, carried. Thank you. And for second reading, Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, discussion. All in favor? Motion carries. And for third reading, Councillor Young, Councillor Harrison. Discussion. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And as I mentioned, I often report on transit and the other facilities that RDN staff spoke about, and there's no way I can match what they said and how to explain things the way they did. So that was much appreciated for a coordination by our staff and the RDN staff to make themselves available for this. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So just a few things to sort of report out on. One, I went to the town hall Gord Johns hosted on all things economic, the economy writ large. The one point I did want to make is that it's not being reported a lot, but I was reading about how Germany and Denmark have both stopped using Microsoft Office and are using European companies' products instead. France is no longer using Zoom or Teams. They're using a French company's product instead. And there is a real opportunity, I think, for Canada. Traditionally, we're a small country that isn't quite as big as America, but ironically right now, with everyone saying, maybe we don't want to have American everything, that gives Canada a real opportunity, ironically, to say, we will never bully you and tell you what to do, because how can we? So I just think that there's a real opportunity for Canada. It's not just, I know from Victoria and Ottawa, I hear a lot about natural resource extraction, LNG, pipelines or no pipelines, et cetera. But I think for the service sector, there's real opportunities for Canada to use our existing trade relationships and really grow some of our companies, as opposed to waiting for American companies to buy us out, and then the head of that company gets a cushy job in a company that doesn't really do anything. But yeah, it was really great to see Gord show up. There was a decent number of people there, about 80 folks, I'd say, 70 to 80 people. And Danielle Novak was there as well, which brings me to the next thing, which is the Chamber of Commerce. So I was talking to a couple local businesses about well, there's one business, they were very frustrated with some of the folks on council, so I dropped by to say, hey, what's going on? And basically they showed their accounts receivable and showed that, you know, the town used to do business and isn't anymore. And I was just wondering, just through the chair to staff, it's not something where we have to do anything right now, but is there a way, if local businesses in the future wanted to submit bids for, say, various contracts for, say, like, the example they used was ink for printers, and they said, well, I can get you a discount. Is there any way for them to sort of, like, if they ask the town, we say, well, this is what we pay, and if you can match that, great. Just as a way, I think, to maybe, like, if we could source things locally, perhaps, and I don't know if that's Ms. Svensson or Ms. Varela.
Start with Ms. Varela. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So procurement is a process, and we do have a policy for that. I could take that under consideration and discuss it with Director Hare at a future date. Thank you.
And I do recognize how slammed staff is, so I'm not saying that we need to create a whole new process. But yeah, just if there's a few local businesses that could match prices, it would be good if we could source things locally as much as possible. The other thing too, just talking to a couple local businesses, is it's not universal, but some local businesses have seen a real decline in the Christmas bump. So traditionally in our town, if you have a small business, Christmas is a very busy time of year. It's where you actually turn a profit. And some businesses have seen year-over-year decline. They actually showed me their books, and which helps. So just very informal conversations with the head of the chamber about maybe doing something more in the daytime. Moonlight Madness is great for families, but for a lot of seniors, it's late at night. It's very dark out. They don't feel comfortable driving necessarily. So I know that there's a staff lens for any event, but There might be something informal in the winter time, but very early days, so I'm not promising anything. It's just a conversation. Just a couple other things. One, Santa Day with Day Homes. There is a little bit of discussion about veterans homelessness, and just for their benefit and also the public too, there's an organization called the South Vancouver Island Housing Society. They specifically do veterans housing. It's a really good organization. The problem, though, is the most recent project they had required the provincial funding stream that just got paused, called the Community Housing Fund. So if there is an ability for that, you'd probably be talking to the Courtney Legions, Courtney Comox Valley Legions, but it is a worthwhile cause if they want to do that. And lastly is there's just some discussion about the doctor's clinic and whether it's a business or not. And what I was referring to is when you create what's called an LLP, as I said, because it's going to be what's called a limited liability partnership. That's something where provincially the definition of a partnership in the provincial legislation is in the Partnership Act. And it says partnership defined. Partnership is the relation which subsists between persons carrying on business in common with a view of profit. And that's why I'm just sort of flagging that, because it interacts with 25.1 in the community charter, which is about assistance to business. So I just want to flag that. That's a bit of a problem. If there's a different management ownership structure, then there creates possibilities for the town. But as long as it's an LLP, it's really, really, really probably not going to work. So hopefully we could have a conversation if we want to support a doctor's clinic or primary care more broadly. How do we do that within the rules? As opposed to, we would love to do this, but maybe we're actually breaking some of the rules that are set out for us. And lastly, very last thing I promise is Qualicum Commons, nothing's set yet, but there's a lot of people who signed an online petition, a lot of people who wanted to show up at an event. That's lovely. But if you really want to save Qualicum Commons, start looking at fundraising. Start looking at doing the hard work, talking to businesses about donations in kind and volunteering their work if you're accredited to do the work in that building. And one thing, if we're able to move forward, which is an if, it's not defined yet, we might want to also check who would get the donations. Would it be the school or would it be the town? So if someone wanted to donate specifically for that purpose, it's awkward if it's the town because we don't really own the property. And so I think the school district can also give you tax receipts. That's something we'd have to clarify, of course. I don't know what the answer is, but I have a hunch it would be the school district. But when we have a conclusion on that, hopefully I can give an update. But I just want to flag, please don't just sign an online petition and think it's mission accomplished. We really need people to step up and do the work. And I learned my lesson from the St. Andrews Lodge Society, where I was on the wrong side of things. I thought there's no way the community could step up and raise all that money. They did, and I was wrong. And I learned from that. So here we go again. Let's give the community a chance to step up and see if they can do the work, and we'll find out. And with that, oh, the notice of motion, right. Almost forgot, I'm so sorry. So this is basically, one of the things I'm worried about is that the way it's set up right now is that there's no tax increase. And I do worry that that puts us in a position where if there's a negotiation and there's very few respondents, we might not be able to walk away from a low bid. This gives us a little bit more breathing room. I looked at the zoning map. Patio homes is really what I think most people would agree. Patio homes is the predominant building form. That's usually what's called R3. And so like right where I live on Arbutus, there's a lot of R3. That's the patio home developments just off the street. The ones on Berwick, just off of the Rupert, that's R3. But R3 has a 35% site coverage right now. I don't think we've updated that. And R1 has a 55% site coverage. So that's why I said R1, is that I think we all agree that, most people would agree actually, that they're looking for patio homes. They're looking for not just standard single family homes on those lots. But I think ironically, because we've updated things with the provincial legislation, that's why I'm saying R1. And I do understand what staff is saying. So I would say then that with the election, because this is happening after the election, people would be informed. What's called an alternative approval process, if 10% of people write in and say, no, I don't want you to do that, it gets vetoed. And then you can either do a normal referendum or walk on. But I do think that we'd be in a better position if we had slightly less density. Oh, and the last thing, the density units from 60 units per hectare to 50. There's 2.5 acres per hectare. So with 50 units per hectare, it's 0.05 acres per unit. and you look at the average Eagle Crest lot, it's about 0.15 to 0.2 is the average lot in Eagle Crest. So it's still a lot more density. It's not that significant a variance, but it would just to offset some of the concerns about excess density, because if they build up to the maximum density in the zoning, it's actually a lot of units and a lot of parking. So yeah, that's just, I think it's pretty clear what the intent is, and I think everyone knows what they want to do. So I just move the resolution that we look at changing the zoning to R1 and reduce the density very slightly and look at an alternative approval process.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Is there a second there? Councillor Young seconding? Yeah, I guess you made your point
Yeah,
already.
it's
Okay.
pretty clear. It's all there, and folks, I think, pretty much understand what's going on.
Yeah. Councillor Young?
I second it because I recognize Councillor Harrison as the liaison for Eagle Crest. And I'm happy to hear that there's more discussion that's needed. I've heard from people as well as in emails, and I'm wondering, has the town gotten a report on the survey that was put out?
Mr. Sales, in addition, perhaps you can explain the difference between the two zoning that are being discussed?
Yes, thank you. So in the larger context, staff have been doing a lot of public engagement with the residents of Eagle Crest and the broader community. So we've had a lot of input both through the surveys and also in person. So I think we're very clear that residents are really looking for something that's compatible with what's there currently. And you know, as we move forward with the next stages in the process, you know, we're going to be making recommendations to council that reflect what we're hearing from the community. So to answer the second question, the zoning R21, which is applied to the northern part of that land west of Country Club Drive, so kind of like the lower down on the hill. So that has a density of approximately 60 units per hectare, and the zoning R1 also permits 60 units per hectare, approximately, like we're within a few, like one or two either way. So the difference is that with the R21 zoning, it looks at the parcel as a whole and allocates density potential that gives council and potential builders on the land a little bit more flexibility. So if council were to say, yes, we want R1 because that's what everyone else has, that would presuppose that we want to have more or less evenly divided lots with 4 units of potential on every lot. The recommendation moving forward is to continue with the process that we've established, which is to allow a little bit more flexibility in how units are distributed on the lot. Developers will make proposals to the town. They will come to council, and council will be able to determine whether those proposals are compatible with what the community is looking for, whether they're compatible with the design guidelines and such. And on that basis, you can decide whether or not it's the right fit for the land. So at this point, I think it's probably the recommendation of staff to continue on with the process that you're on. Next steps for that, just for context, we are going to be bringing a report to council on May 13th. And that report will have a preliminary neighborhood plan. So sort of the best understanding that we have right now, without the traffic study and some of the other work underway, our best understanding of the overall neighborhood plan. So you'll have that. There will also be recommendations for parcel-specific design guidelines or development parameters that then would be given to developers to say, this is what council wants, this is what we've heard from the public. Developers, how can you help advance our goal? And then those proposals will come back to council. So regardless of whether council makes a step to rezone the land now, all the control is still in the hands of council. So I would say let's let the process unfold and see what that additional flexibility yields in terms of neighborhood benefit.
Thank you. And when we do get the plan, and council will get that first, but we will invite the residents and the resident association for their input. The same when we go to request for proposals, we invite input for that as well. Councillor Young.
I do believe that there's been comments about R21 being entertained, multi-residential in a part of EcoCrest, and I believe that density should be in closer to our downtown community and not in the suburbs. We already have, because we talk about people wanting to age in place, and I've heard comments from how some EcoCrest residents would like to age in place. But to age in place, to have that multi-unit complex in EcoCrest, I don't think that's the right place, is in the suburbs. If we have it in the downtown area, we have proposals of a build on Beach and First. We have a proposal for Memorial and Hoy Lake Road, as well as down on the Island Highway. Many units that people can age in place and walk to all the services that they need to do in Qualicum Beach. And it's not walkable from EcoCrest for a lot of seniors to come into town if they're not able to drive. So I don't think there's a need for a multi-resident build in EcoCrest. And also, I second this motion because it's about EcoCrest land use. And I also want to bring up the Area 2, which is Fairway 18. And in our OZP, it does say in OZP 4.9.5, the town does say that we like to preserve all of our golf courses and all of our green spaces into perpetuity. And so I kind of think it's kind of like insider trading when our town...
Stop. Insider trading, I think that's rather disrespectful. I'll
Okay.
consider staff and council to be insider traders. Thank you. Please apologize.
Okay. I apologize for that. Sorry so much. Okay, just...
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So I would like to remind council and the public that council went through a very public process to rezone and undertake an OCP amendment for this property in October. It was actually October 22nd, 2025. And you did that as a condition prior to purchase of the golf course because publicly council directed that you wish to have this project self-funded, so without impact to taxation. Again, I think the staff comment is fair in that if council chooses to take a different path and change its mind about zoning or any of those things, but I just want to really make sure that we aren't inviting reputational harm that isn't deserved. Thank you, Your Worship.
My apologies. I'm so sorry for using that term. It is a difficult thought process that I'm going through. Yes, I did vote for us to self-fund the EcoCrest Golf Course. And I think it's a wonderful idea that we did purchase it. At this point, though, I'm also seeing that there's a pressure on the current residents that we're going to try to recoup our financial resources to recoup money into our reserves so that we can do our capital projects. But we bought the golf course for present enjoyment and for future enjoyment. So I'm thinking at this point, yes, zone some of these lands for R1, but also if some emergency comes up, I believe we should maybe go into some sort of long-term borrowing to cover for emergency if we don't have the funds from sales yet. And I say long-term borrowing because we bought the golf course for present and future generations, so future generations should also contribute some financial expenses to this project. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Perhaps we should highlight the flexibility that we have with the zoning that we are now working with. And I think people should perhaps hold their fire until we see the neighborhood plan and then still have consultation. So perhaps identify with, and I think people like patio homes, whether they're in EcoCrest or at the south. Actually, at the east end of EcoCrest, there's some fairly high density development with what is that place called? First we have the Strata, and then we have Eaglewood, I think it's called. So those are pretty high-density places, but they're very attractive for people to purchase into. So I think we should hold our fire until we see the neighborhood plan, because the staff is working with the neighborhood to come up with a plan that suits the neighborhood and it meets our objectives. Mr. Sales?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the reference, because Oceanside Strata is certainly well received by the neighborhood. That wouldn't be permitted in R1, right? So that's an example of a more creative use of the land that would not be permitted if we went back to the default, which is R1. So just for context, that is potentially the type of approach that you could look at with a little bit more flexibility. And the other interesting point is that we have people writing in and saying we think that R1 is the right choice, and I think what I take away from that, interestingly, is that for the most part, residents are saying we recognize that there's going to be some development there. We just want it to be compatible, and I think that's the real key message. And as we move forward in the next stages of reviewing proposals and reviewing the parcel-specific guidelines and everything, we need to keep that in mind. Residents are saying, if there's going to be development, we recognize that development is reasonable in a lot of these lands. We want it to be compatible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Varela, did you have your hand up?
Your Worship, once you're through with this matter and have a vote, I'd like to circle back to a previous comment made by Councillor Harrison just to offer some clarification and assurance. Thank you.
Further discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to say that I won't be voting in favor of this at this time, because I think that we are in the middle of a process. We just have to have a little patience, and I look forward to seeing what staff put forward on May the 13th. Thank you.
Councillor Vander Valk.
Thank you. I think that if the neighbors that are concerned about the densification and parkland and all the many other things that we've received emails about, again, I do think that the town is taking people's concerns and considerations into account. And as Director Sales said, we have had many open houses. We've had meetings with Eagle Crest specifically, meetings with the town overall, and it is an overall town project. It's not just an Eagle Crest project. Eagle Crest is going to see a lot of benefit from this. They've got a huge parkland. They're getting the golf course and the clubhouse, which will be a revived hub. Plus, the town will get some of the housing that we've said we need. So I will not be in favor. I will not vote for this notice of or for the motion. And I would suggest that people that have concerns do attend the open houses, do attend the workshops, express their concerns, which I think has been happening, and staff have really worked to accommodate a lot of the concerns, and be collaborative rather than confrontational would be my hope. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Vander Valk. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, well, just to point out, though, that the letter I referred to from the Eagle Crest Residents Association was the official correspondence on the rezoning, which we received prior to the October 22nd. We received it on October 3rd, and it clearly called for R1 on both of those lots in its entirety. We also had a public hearing where we had about probably 300 people show up. It's probably the biggest public hearing I've ever seen. And about 90% of people, I'd say roughly, said the density is too much. We want it to be R1. And the overwhelming majority of people, I'd say honestly 90% of response were, we want R1, but we're glad the town owns the golf course. It was basically the feedback we heard. And then as soon as we said, well, we need to make money to make it tax-free, we moved away from that and just have 5-story institutional. And I challenge anyone to say that 5-story institutional building is in line with the character of Eagle Crest. It is not. Just absolutely, it is not. I'm sorry, that's just categorical. If 5 stories is too much for our downtown, how is it acceptable for Eagle Crest? That makes no sense. But beyond that, the other thing too is that if you look at the actual tax rate, depending on how it compounds, and Mr. Harrison here, so I'm not sure how, if you compound it annually or if it's just the total amount you borrow, but it's roughly 1.5% is the tax impact of a 30-year borrowing for $5 million. I think for the 30 million, it's 1.3 with the interest rate, and I'm adding a little bit extra just to be cautious to make sure I don't undersell it. But 1.5 is the total amount for 5 million. The other point too that a lot of folks have mentioned, because I know one of the reasons staff say we want to wait is they want to present on the reports of the survey, but I was there, Councillor Vander was there, and the mayor was there when they presented the information, and we saw all the marbles. And all the marbles were clearly concern was about the densification. The number one response for the residents, we saw that broken down by residents of Eagle Crest and everyone else. Number one concern for the residents of Eagle Crest was excess density, right? So we've had the public hearing, the official correspondence from the ERA, and a subsequent survey, all which say the same thing. So that's why I'm doing this now. If we're going to be using R1 as a placeholder, to Mr. Sales' point, I just don't understand why a strata is incompatible with R1. At the end of the day, too, we might be doing a comprehensive development zone. So if you look at Rupert Road, just before you turn to Arbutus, there's all those homes with a little bit of a cul-de-sac. That's actually a comprehensive development zone, even though it's basically one building form, right? It's basically single-family homes all through there. And so with slightly lower density, but still 0.05 acres per lot, that's pretty small. That's consistent with the other lots in the surrounding area. We control the lot size. So it's not a default that thou shalt have 60 units. Because we control the lot size, we can control how many units are built. And if it's a patio home, you own every individual lot, basically. There might be a strata involved, but I'm not sure how R21 allows stratification and R1 does not. So maybe I'm just confused on that point. Is there something, Mr. Sales, where R1 prohibits that? Because I'm also thinking, too, if we're talking about row houses, that's just a variance to say between two properties you have no setback. And then you can carry on, right? It's a pretty easy process. Because what I'm really getting at here is we're using a placeholder zoning. Essentially, for Eagle Crest, we're going to get a plan. But I think R1 is a lot closer to what the community wants. So maybe if Mr. Sales can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure why a stratified development would be incompatible with R1 if we're selling it all as one chunk to a proponent who wants to build patio homes.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook, through the chair to Councillor Harrison. It is incompatible with R1. R1 only allows a maximum of 4 dwellings per parcel. So if you have a larger parcel that contemplates a more wholesale development design, so Oceanside Strata is an example, Eaglewood, the Bluffs. No, take that back. The Bluffs is a Bearland Strata, different. The multi-residential developments in the Arbutus area that you referenced, all those are examples of things that would not be permitted in R1. So when we look at placeholders, I think describing it as a placeholder is a pretty reasonable way to think about this. The zoning that's in place on the west side of Country Club Drive on the lower portion of the property is a placeholder that's exactly the same as the surrounding area in height and density. So that's a reasonable placeholder.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? I'm going to call the question on the motion. All in favor? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Young, are you voting or are you?
Sorry, can I get more clarification on this motion?
Just use the microphone, please.
I'm sorry, but can I get the more detailed clarification on this motion?
It's where it says being resolved, and on page, that's 2 of your opening part of the agenda.
So we're voting for all the points?
I assume, Mr.
1A,
Harrison,
B,
I
C,
assume all
and 2?
points?
If someone wants to do division, you could, but at this point, we're doing all 3.
Yeah.
But if someone, forgive me, right now I'm sensing a 2-3, but if someone who's part of the 2-3 thinks one of them is a good idea, by all means, request division.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think just taking them as one is probably more efficient.
Yeah, all above the or. Yeah. Okay?
So we just do 1.
Use your microphone, please.
1A through C, correct.
Yeah.
And not 2?
All right.
I'd like an amendment to that. I'd like to leave out C. I'd like to not have staff do more work. They're already overloaded. And I'm just actually happy to hear from Mr. Sales that in May 13th, we will have a rediscussion on neighborhood plan for Eagle Crest. So I'm actually looking forward to this, and I'm glad that Councillor Harrison has brought up this motion for further discussion. And so that's what I would like to vote for, but not for all the changes that's on this amendment, or on this motion, sorry.
So what is your amendment, Councillor Young?
Here's a bylaw change for the former.
Do you want to vote just on A and B and then deal with C separately?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is to split off the resolution by voting separately on A and B and separately on C. So, Mr. Harrison, what is your view on this?
Sure, if the mayor is fine with it,
Well,
and if our staff is fine with it too.
well, I'm just trying to accommodate the council. So we'll vote on A and B first, and that's the amendment. So do you have the wording for the amendment, Ms. Svensson?
The motion on the floor right now is what is directed on the screen, and Councillor Young is proposing an amendment to strike C from this resolution that's on the floor.
Okay.
So if Councillor Harrison seconds the amendment to strike C, we will vote then on the amendment, and
We're
then
voting the amendment first to strike C. That's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously, so C is gone. Now, back to the main motion, which is basically A and B for the discussion. All in favor? Councillor Harrison, Councillor Young, opposed. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander, Mayor Westbroek, opposed. Motion fails. The next item is the Parks and Recreation, Councillor Skipsey.
Okay, thank you. My report is in the agenda, and then I've made a notice of motion, and I put this motion forward as the Environment and Sustainability Committee is a group of very capable volunteers who haven't met for some time, and from what I hear are itching to carry on and keep going, as there's always a lot of work to do, especially around climate action and education. So I'm asking for council support, especially today of all days, which is Earth Day. So yeah, and with regard to working with a third party, I think the discussion might determine who that third party is, so I don't want to presuppose anything. I know there are lots of groups in the community that would be happy to work with us, such as the MABR or other groups, so I'd like to move, yeah.
And is there a seconder? Councillor Vander, discussion. Councillor Young.
I'm happy for Councillor Skipsey for bringing this up, and I did speak to Ray at Mount Aerosmith Biosphere, and he'd be happy to be involved on a project like this. He's currently working with the RDN on an awareness program right now.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
So one thing that I was thinking we should be doing more broadly just for climate change is there's a few communities on the island. What they do is they actually have a budgeted amount every year for climate change, and then they just do an open RFP, basically, like the Parksville Qualicum Foundation would do, say, for send us your ideas, and then those ideas, I would suggest, to probably go to the Environment Sustainability Committee. So I think the idea of allocating these funds is correct. The only thing for me is, should we maybe do like an open RFP, open up for everyone, as opposed to asking that specific committee for ideas first? But I do think it's going to end up in the same direction. But I think that might get some different ideas that we might not have thought of if we open up to the public.
Councillor Skipsey, any comment on that?
Yeah, my only concern is that that would create more work for staff, and I think that depending on how the discussion goes, then we would go from there. But the idea is to work with a third party and not require the time of staff to advertise for an RFP, put it together, get the submissions and whatnot. So I think I'm interested in keeping it as simple as possible at this point. Thank you. And maybe in future we could look at doing things that way. There's another $15,000 next year in the budget for climate action. So
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, the only reason I'm just raising it is just, there's a little part of me procedurally, which sort of hair on neck, I'm not really like the idea where a bunch of people say, oh, my friend's doing something really cool, we should get the money for that. And just because I know on the accessibility committee, we had once the brain body fitness, and one of the committee members is involved in that. And so there was a little bit of a conversation of, it's a worthy cause, it's a great thing, but it's just slightly awkward when it comes from the committee to go to someone who's involved with the committee. So, but again, that might not be an issue because I have no idea where the money would be recommended to go. But just procedurally, I like it better if we open it to the whole public. But I hear what Councillor Skipsey is saying, but it's still, at the end of the day, the idea of having a set amount in your budget and it's allocated for that purpose, and you help nonprofit groups scale up their operations is a really good idea. This is the way a bunch of other communities on the island do it, and I think it's probably the most efficient way, as opposed to having a staff person trying to catch up on existing projects, to let the community take the ball and run with it.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Worship. So for clarity, it would be a recommendation from the committee to council, and council would support that recommendation if appropriate. Staff would also weigh in, given the fact that it is tax dollars. So staff would also provide a recommendation. So moving this today doesn't commit to an activity. It really ask the committee to weigh in with their recommendation. So future council decision-making would be required. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison?
Well, just the only thing then, just maybe operationally, I might suggest is maybe if we could just get like a Facebook post. If we're going to be doing this, just let the public know, here's some funds, send us emails if you're interested in applying for this. That way it accomplishes the same thing, because we're going to do the same staff report. There is still the committee meeting, and a Facebook post from some of our staff probably wouldn't be too much of an ask, honestly, operationally. But I think this is fine as a one-time thing, but I think maybe if we announce it before the decision, we might get some emails from folks who have really interesting ideas we might not have thought of.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That completes your report, Ms. Skipsey, Councillor Skipsey. Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I have my written report and the agenda. I would like to say that the correct date would be today's date on my report. It says regular council meeting March 25th, and it should be April 22nd, just to clarify. I don't really have anything to add. I did also attend the workshop for the ways to achieve attainable market housing. I just stayed for the presentation, so that would allow residents to have their input into what they would like to see happen. And on April the 20th, I attended the board meeting for the St. Andrew's Lodge Heritage and Historical and Cultural Society, SALHACS. The restoration is almost complete. They're itching to get going, and they're planning a grand reopening on July the 4th, and would like to invite the town to attend.
Question, are they advertising for tenants to use the space for different purposes?
They haven't started advertising yet, but they will be soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey?
Well, I just wanted to add that I did tour the facility, the lodge yesterday with a group that's interested in potentially renting it on a weekly basis.
Great, thank you. Councillor Young?
My liaison report is on page 39 and 40, and the only thing that I forgot to add was I also attended the WAM consultation, and that was really appreciated, very informative, and it was nice to work with some of the residents and what their thoughts were as well. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Corporate Services, Ms. Svensson?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. The first item I'll pass through to Ms. Varela to speak on.
Thank you. It's basically a motion that helps us understand how this system works. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Worship. So we do have a bulk water agreement with the Regional District of Nanaimo that obligates us that if rate changes are being contemplated within the town's water rate bylaw, we are committed to providing an opportunity for the RDN to review the changes before they are approved by council. We didn't provide the RDN that opportunity for comment, so we are in receipt of correspondence requesting deferral of the rate increase until September 30th, 2026. There is a letter I provided to Mr. Walters on page 41 of the agenda, acknowledging that the error was the town's and that I would be making recommendation to council today to defer that rate increase until September 30th, 2026, as per the RDN's request. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I move the staff recommendation. Councillor Skipsey seconding. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Ms. Svensson?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So on page 42 of your package, you have your 2026 special event sponsorship applications. There's 5 staff recommendations that go with those applications. 3 of them staff are recommending approval of, and 2 are recommending that the applications be denied. And number 4, we're suggesting denial of that because it's a private event. It's not an event that's open to the public. And number 5 is requesting sponsorship for funding for a community movement initiative that is sponsored by an outside organization called Participaction, which is a Canadian nonprofit organization, and they do provide grant and funding for communities to apply through for that. So we're denying that one because it's not one event for our community.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a motion for all 5 recommendations or separate them out? Councillor Harrison.
I just had a question on the very last one from the Community Futures, but otherwise, I do understand the rationale for the first 4, so I'm happy with the first 4. And then maybe just talk about the last one individually.
Sure. Councillor Young.
I'd like to have discussion individually.
Do that. So the first one is for the farmers market discussion. And now I assume because the mover and seconder would agree with one at a time. I thought Councillor Skipsey moving, Councillor Vander Valk seconding, and we're just dealing with the first one regarding the farmers market, Christmas night market event on December 4th. Are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Yeah. Well,
Are you
discussion.
on number 1?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just going to page 51 on the Christmas night market on their event budget. I'd just like a little more clarification. They're asking for a $2,500 support. They receive in vendor fees $4,500 for the 5-hour event. And then they already have sponsorship and grants, the $3,000. Does that include the $2,500 from town?
Yes, it does. I believe it does, yes. Council authorized the 2,500 last year, so they're applying again and counting on the 2,500 for this year.
Okay. I'm just looking at the business model, and do we wonder why that they're spending $700 on volunteer meals, and then they have wages of $850 when they have volunteers? Like, whose the wages going for $850 for this 5-hour event? And the same with the volunteers. How many volunteers do they have that is going to be eating up $700 worth of meals in this 5-hour event? Music, paying out $1,700 for this 5-hour event. I don't know. I'm just wondering on this business model and how they're getting these figures. And then at the end of the day, if we do provide $2,500, they end up with a profit of $225. So then maybe the ask should be less, because right now for our community, we don't want to be in a deficit like the province. We're trying to save every penny and every dollar.
Thank you. I would suggest that we defer this one until we get the answers to the questions Councillor Young just raised, so we can be more informed about what actually is happening with that money. So I move deferral to the next council meeting. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Second, so you're seconding my motion. This is to defer the number 1 item to get the questions, and perhaps you could type your questions to Ms. Swenson and she can get the answers for you. Go ahead.
And I just want to comment, I'm full support of the Saturday Farmers Market. They do a wonderful job. It's just for the town to hand out money, I'm hoping that maybe they will revisit their expenses for this 5-hour event and make it workable that they won't have to get money from the town when their vendors are already paying them $4,500.
Yeah, the motion now is to defer that to get the answer to your questions. So, Councillor Vander.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that I think the Christmas night market is was very successful last year, and they have changed the date of their night market to not be on Moonlight Madness because there were businesses that thought that interfered. So I have no problem whatsoever. I think they're very straightforward in terms of what they're doing and how much it costs them, and I have no problem at all supporting this. So I see no need to defer it, but if that's council's wish, then so be it.
Thank you. And maybe we should change the Moonlight Madness to Sunrise Madness because a lot of people don't like to come out at night. Councillor Harrison.
And just to be really particular, when we're deferring, we should only be speaking to the deferral,
Yes.
but it's not too big of a deal for this one. The only thing I want to check, just through the chair's staff, there's no implications if we defer in terms of them receiving the funds at a future meeting. There's no deadlines where, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it's not something where it's looped into something with like our financial plan or something where we have to approve it in the next month or something. So
And
if it's still going to reach them in the long run, then okay, we can ask some questions. It's not the end of the world.
And I share your pain. When you make a motion to defer, it's about the deferment, not the issue that of deferring. So thank you for beefing that up. On the motion to defer, all in favor? All of those unanimous. Thank you. So number 2, which is the St. Mark's special event. Who would like to move that? Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Any carried? Thank you. So 2 passes. And number 3, St. Andrew Lodge. Councillor Valk. You moved that. Councillor Skipsey seconding. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 4. Who would like to discuss that one? I thought there was somebody that wanted to debate that. Oh, just the last one. So number 4. Is there a mover and seconder? Councillor Skipsey. Councillor Young. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Staff recommendation. Yep. All in favor. Nobody's opposed to that one. Number 5. And that was the one that we had some issues. Perhaps, Ms. Swenson, can you articulate what that event is about and why staff recommends to deny that request?
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. As noted in the staff report, we just felt that because it is a Canadian organization that's promoting it, it is sponsored by Participation. It's not an individual community event. It's something that's national-wide, and there is funding through that and tools to have direct payment. If you look at their expenses, it goes along the lines of what Councillor Young was just alluding to, too. It's $400 for snacks for volunteers, and then most of the funds are for printing of materials, $500 for marketing and print materials, $500 for advertising, $800 for signage, tables, and then again, $300 for the market activation materials and $400 for volunteer snacks. So we just didn't feel it fit. It didn't have one community event locally, that it was more of a, but it's completely up to council. This is just staff's recommendation.
Sure, thank you. So, Councillor Young?
So I did reach out to the collective and spoke to Mateus Golub, and he sent me back an email this morning to say Participation does not provide grant funding to run local events. The program offers prize funding only for a national winner and a regional winner, awarded after the challenge based on participation levels. The town funding we are requesting is essential to deliver the initiative locally, including community promotion and awareness, market activations to drive registration, materials and logistics for the June 6th community event, coordination across participating organizations. The town funding we are requesting is essential to deliver the initiative locally, And without this funding, we will not be able to effectively run or activate the initiative at a community level. This initiative represents a high leverage opportunity, minimal local investment, national platform and visibility through participation, strong alignment with health, wellness, and community engagement priorities. If Qualicum Beach were to win a participation prize, these funds would be reinvested into the future Qualicum Beach collective programming to continue supporting a healthy, active environment community. Ultimately, this is about unlocking a national opportunity for our community, not duplicating funding. So, and thank you for hearing me on that.
Thank you for the background. So you moved that we actually approved their application?
Yes, and if the town would like more information from the collective, we can request that. And
Thank you. So you moved it. Is there a second there? Councillor Harrison, seconding. Discussion.
I'll let everyone also have their piece, but I kind of think that this is something that might be good for staff to double check. Because right now the staff report says that there is grant funding through participation. The proponent has just informed one member of council that there isn't. And I think it might be good before we make the final decision to find that out for sure. The other thing too is that we do have room in the budget for this to be approved. Right now we're approving 7,500 and this is 2,500 and the total budget is 10,000. So there's fiscal room for it and it'd be good to make sure what the facts are on this one. So I know they have a tight timeline because they want to get some things printed in May. But when would this, forgive me, just through the chair to staff, if this is deferred, when would this then be brought forward? I'm assuming at the next regular meeting? Okay.
I think that's probably correct. Next council meeting, we have already one that's coming back with information, so we can do them both for information to the next council meeting. All right, so defer them both.
Just do a motion to defer then, if I may, Your Worship.
Pardon?
Defer.
Defer, like number one, and the seconder for that, Councillor Skipsey. I know it happens to a lot of us, so turn your phones off, please. That's great. So the motion is to defer this one as well to the next council meeting to get the information. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Svensson. No. We're going with the next, and that's C, Special Event Application Canada Day.
Yes.
Ms. Svensson. No. We've dealt with all five. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So there's a staff recommendation on page 5 of your agenda package to authorize the closure of Veterans Way on July 1st from 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. to facilitate the Canada Day celebration festivities, to work with the town staff to ensure the requirements are all met, including emergency service notification and certificate of liability insurance naming the town as additional insurer, and that the town provides support in the form of barricades, garbage cans, water, and electrical access during the event.
Thank you. As the liaison to the Legion, I move that staff recommendation. Councillor Harrison seconding. Discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
I just want to put a plug in for the parade because they need parade participants or it doesn't happen. So, okay, maybe I've overstepped already.
I think you did, a little bit. Mrs. Svensson.
Yes, the Legion has chosen not to do a parade this year, so there will not be a parade. They're going to focus more, they've got additional activities planned for the day. They're working with using the tennis courts for additional bouncy castles for children and enhancing the activities throughout the day and putting those funds towards that instead of the parade. They just didn't receive the input, and I think with Family Day having a parade and being so close to Canada Day, and then also with Parksville doing their large Canada Day parade, it's in competition.
Yeah, it was often, I've heard this from several people, where's the parade? I said, it just went by. And if I'd known that, I would have gone to Parksville. They have a big parade. And so I think President Weiss was very prudent in saying, how can we best spend the money that the town is providing to make this Canada Day special? And I think their innovative approach to having more children's events, family events, I think is quite appropriate. So I support this application. For the discussion, Councillor Harrison.
Okay, well then I'll do a plug. On Canada Day, historically, the town has allowed free parking underground, which means not in the hot sun. And I know last year when I pulled out after the event, I was the only car in the underground parking lot. So feel free to use it and have a much cooler car when you drive home.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you. Ms. Svensson?
Thank you. Next item is on page 72, and that's your subsidized rental applications. Based on the policy, we have 2 for this intake, 1 for Ducks Unlimited and 1 for Oceanside Bridge Club.
Okay, we could take them both if Councillor Michelle wishes. Councillor Harrison moved both. Councillor Vander Valk seconding. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. So both items are approved. Then we have a select committee on Beach Day celebration. Ms. Svensson?
Yes, on page 73 of your agenda package, we have an amendment to the terms of reference for the composition of the committee by striking bullet 3 of item 6, meetings, and striking the word "and" after October, and inserting the words November and December.
Thank you. Councillor Skipsey moved that. Councillor Vander Valk seconding. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you. And the council meeting schedule.
Yes, one final amendment. Given that we're getting close to the election, staff are recommending deleting the September 2nd, 2026 Committee of the Whole Town Hall Forum meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Vander Valk moved. Councillor Skipsey seconding. Discussion? Councillor Harrison?
I think the election will serve largely the same function.
I agree with you again. Okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you. Ms. Svensson?
Just on page 77 of your agenda package is just the announcement of closed meeting motions for your information.
Thank you. And then we have the item that's on green sheets regarding the attendance of folks to go to the awards for the commercial building ceremony. And this year we've been nominated for our skateboard park. And you probably all know the 2 people who were very active in the design and fundraising and the building of the skateboard park. So we thought we'd offer them tickets to go to this event, as they, I think, are most deserving. So I move the resolution. Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Vander Valk, discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Zoning amendment on First Avenue West. Pardon? Did I miss one? Oh, thank you. That's the staff recommendation to work with Kaizen Architecture Interior Design and Planning Limited for the amount of $61,280. Mr. Sales or Mr. Svensson? Ms. Svensson, any comments? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Just a brief amount of context on this one. So for a few years, the town has been doing preliminary explorations as to what the town's operations departments need. So that's the parks and public works functions. The first step in this kind of consideration is to have an outside party come in and give us some guidelines as to what would make our operations, in terms supported, safe, and effective in the years to come. So they're going to come in and look at what we have now, look at what we're anticipated to need in the future, and make recommendations as to the amount of space area, the functions, and how they could be organized. This work would not include recommendations on site, so that's a discussion for council later on. So this is a kind of a functional analysis of what would be best for the future of our operations team. So this was the result of a competitive process. We received 5 proposals. This is not the lowest bid, but when we considered the factors, including the experience of the team and the quality of the proposal, this was the top recommendation from a multi-departmental analysis or evaluation committee. Thank you.
What is roughly the timeline for this process?
Yes, thank you. So the work would be started imminently, but the actual reporting would probably come early next year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey. Go ahead.
And just one question. So because we're not looking at sites, when we get the final report back, we just say roughly there's about this much space that's needed for whatever we're going to do. And then eventually we'd start looking at the next processes, well, what sites accommodate that scope? So I'm assuming we'll get a rough idea of the space that's needed, if not the site that's needed.
Yeah, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor?
No.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, this contract, could we maybe delay it for maybe when we have more land sales, so that some of our reserves are replenished. Because when we actually do this new operation assessment, isn't that we're going to be doing long-term borrowing of $6 million?
Ms. Varela. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So that funding source hasn't been determined at this time. Off the top of my head, without the Director of Finance here, I can't remember how it's laid out in the financial plan. But I do want to point out that this initiative is actually funded from Council's Strategic Initiative Reserve. So separate funding source. Council deliberated this in strategic planning, and staff are implementing as per Council direction. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Young, follow up?
Yes, we did ask for this, but considering, should we not be saving some of our reserve money just in case of something emergency comes up?
Councillor, Ms. Varela.
Again, Your Worship, Council's received this information through the financial planning process. You can ask these questions, and I'll make sure the Director is prepared to discuss those at the future amendment that we anticipate. So you'll see a financial plan adopted, and then as amendments are required through the year, we bring that forward and it's a public discussion. So I'll flag that for the Director. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councillor Harrison?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend.
Sorry, Ms. Swenson had her hand up too. Pardon me.
My apologies.
Ms. Swenson.
Sir, if I could just clarify the mover and seconder.
I think it was Councillor Skipsey and Councillor Vander. Oh,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Harrison, Councillor Vander.
My apologies.
No problem. Councillor Harrison.
Just wouldn't recommend deferring this. While I'm not sure what the final solution is going to be, those buildings, some of those buildings really need to be upgraded. And I know our staff, having gone to some of the open houses and just asking some simple questions, are really looking forward to that investment. And I'd hate to say that we're pushing it further back. We've pushed it back quite some ways already, and I wouldn't want to push it any further back. And I think this is just the first step we have to do, and so is prudent.
I agree. Thank you. Councillor Vander.
I would also like to point out in the financial implications, we did have a budget of $100,000, and the award is for $61,280. So we're below the budgeted amount.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Young opposed? No. Oh, you're not opposed? Okay, sorry, pardon me. You passed unanimously. Thank you. I think next we are with the zoning amendment. Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Next up is consideration of a zoning amendment application for a property at 201, 207, and 211 First Avenue West. This is a property that has been considered by council several times in the past, both with the current development team and also with previous developers. So it's been the discussion of been the topic of lots of discussion. This is a revised proposal. So council saw a different version of this one recently and directed that it be revised because the proposal was too tall. So the developer took that guidance from council, and this is the result coming back. I'll describe it briefly, but first I just want to note that the plan set that's in your package is not as developed as you would typically see as a zoning amendment application proceeds. And that's just at kind of a practical check-in with council. Are we going the right direction? Because if the answer is no, there's no reason to invest, the tens of thousands of dollars it takes to put together the complete package. So I just want to give that a context, just in case someone was wondering where the color renderings are and the renderings of the mothers pushing strollers that appear in all of the architectural packages. I'm sorry, that was an unnecessary comment. So the location of the proposed development is at the intersection of Beach Road and First Avenue West. There is an undeveloped laneway to the north side and an undeveloped laneway to the west side. The proposal actually includes the laneway to the north side, so if council does decide to advance with the zoning amendment, the acquisition of the laneway by the proponent would be addressed in an in-camera meeting. So it would need to be sold at market value to the developer. the proposal is primarily residential. There is a small amount of commercial right at the intersection of Beach Road and First Avenue. In previous iterations of this plan, there was a plan at one point where it was a 2-story commercial unit. Then it kind of was modified. It's now single-story with a smaller footprint. The overall development proposal has been reduced by approximately one story on all sides of the building. So on the First Avenue side, you see 3 stories. As you're coming up the hill, because the grade drops off so quickly, you would see 3 stories, and then you would be seeing the parkade below it. So it's a form that council and the public would recognize from other developments like the development at Railway and Memorial Avenue, for example. So there are 2 recommendations for council today. First, that the zoning amendment bylaw be introduced and read a first time. So adopting a zoning amendment bylaw takes 4 readings, so this is the first step. So then the second part would be direction to the applicant that before this proceeds any further, we do need that full set of plans. So in other words, if council does think that this is headed the right direction, we do number 1, and then in number 2, we say, and now, please complete the work so that we can do a detailed analysis of that. So those are the 2 recommendations. I'd be pleased to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Councillor Vander.
Thank you. I do recognize that the proponent has brought it to 3 stories, but I'm still concerned about the height of those 3 stories. So I'm wondering if you could tell me what the height of the parking garage would be, the height of the ceiling heights in the units, and the height of the roofs, because those are all adding to the overall height.
Thank you. Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Vander. That's not information I have immediately available, but I can certainly get all that information and make sure it's included in the package for next time if that's important. Thank you.
Another question.
Go ahead.
In the description or the information from staff on page 84, the proposed development is medium density, but on the following page, 3.7.3, the density is increased from 80 units per hectare to 131 units per hectare. Is 131 units per hectare a medium density?
Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Vander. So the staff comment does address that the official community plan, identifies that 80 units per hectare. However, the OCP also recognizes consideration of benefits that could be grounds for density bonuses. So, for example, the underground parking and green building considerations. So with those factors included, staff consider that the overall density is reasonable for the site. So whether or not it's called medium, that's somewhat subjective, but in terms of compatibility, when you combine the 80 units per hectare with the flexibility offered to council by way of density bonuses, the density is in that range. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Harrison.
I have more, but
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, go around.
I don't mind. Okay.
No, go ahead, Councillor.
Okay. So just one thing. In the past, there have been some discussion of the commercial space as an amenity or not. So right now, is this something, I'm assuming it's not proposed to be an amenity for the town. It would just be something that would be a commercial space on the ground floor. Would I be correct in that, Mr. Sales?
Well, ask the question. Mr. Sales.
Through the chair to Councillor Harrison, that is correct. This is commercial space.
And I don't know if we've received formal correspondence on this. I do know someone who's on the board of Flowerstone saying they have more staff than they have space, and so they're looking for space, but I can't confirm anything. But I do think there's a broader issue of we don't have a lot of vacant commercial space. I think this has been part of the conversation with Qualcomm Commons. There's very few options out there. I think there's one sign in town. So I just wanted to flag that there might be some benefits indirectly from this, but I do understand that it's no longer something for the town. So, okay, just want to be clear on that.
Councillor Skipsey. Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Skipsey.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I just wanted clarification on a couple of things. First of all, this is a rezoning amendment, so we would go through an official public hearing process. There'll be an opportunity for the public to have input on that. Is that correct? Because there's been so many changes, I just want to make sure that I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seals?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. I'll also have to go back and look at the record of motions. So when something's typically introduced, initially the first decision is whether or not it's compliant with the OCP. And then if council has already made that determination, then there would not be a public hearing. But that's something that we'll confirm for next time. Thank you.
Okay, and I just also wanted to clarify that this is only 35% parcel coverage. It seems awfully big for 35%, so maybe.
Confirm that. Mr. Seals?
Thank you. I would also like to confirm that. And it may be that it's including some landscaped areas on top of the parkade. So once again, good question. I'd be happy to look at it.
Thank you. As for me, when I saw the changes, I'd like to support, at least go to first reading and get more details as we go. So I move first reading. Councillor Harrison seconding. Discussion. Councillor Young.
I'd like to have confirmation on the commercial space be given to Flowerstone as a free space. I know that there is correspondence that Flowerstone had received from the developer, and they were asking for a letter of support from Flowerstone, and I know this because I am the liaison to Flowerstone.
I think we can ask council, ask staff to discuss that with the proponent, because that's not part of the presentation. For the discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
Well, I guess I'm just a little concerned, like another proposal that we've been looking at is, like, what does it look like as you're coming up? And there's a big wall, and from the drawings, it looks like 4 stories from beneath, even though the building is actually 3 stories. But I'm just concerned with the size of that wall and the massing of that wall, I think. And also a little bit about how it abuts with the neighboring property, because originally this land was part of a bigger site, which included the small rentals below. And what was originally envisioned was some green space in between the 2 developments. And so I'm trying to get a feel for how this it says a 6 meter, a 6 meter setback, but then there's no real drawings to show the context with how it interfaces with the property below. So,
okay, if this passes, then the next item, that's on the screen there, there'll be a lot more information about landscaping, neighborhood buildings, rainwater management, traffic study, and all that. So I'd like to give the go-ahead to see that happen. And that's why I'm supporting the first reading. Councillor Harrison.
Oh, just one point too. I know sometimes we talk about breaking up large buildings, and I do get the aesthetics of it. Like, I do understand that. But I just caution too, then you might need 2 sets of elevators. You might need 2 sets of HVAC systems. And there's like a lot of guts and stuff in the building, which is actually incredibly expensive. And by the way, for those of you who are very keen on housing policy, we are, for some reason, there's an American standard for elevators, and then there's a global standard, and Canada's chosen the American standard, so we pay way more for elevators. It's fascinating. It's also really, anyways. But long story short, that construction costs really have skyrocketed in the last 25 years. They've more than doubled, I believe. So I understand the idea about massing. I just caution that it really has real impacts, and it might have other impacts in the project if you start splitting things up, even though I do understand the aesthetic argument for that. But sort of like the mayor said, I think when we compare it to the current zoning, it's basically asking for 6 units total for the whole site. And I think was it 2 1/3 meters not much, or 2.5 meters. It's not a huge height variance, but it is a height variance, to be fair, from the existing zoning. But I think first reading is reasonable, and some of the questions we asked, it'd be good to get clarity on.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Vander Valk and then Councillor Young.
Yes, I just, if we're giving our opinions on whether they're going in the right direction or not, there are some things that I would question and like to see have answers to, or perhaps alternative solutions. I share Councillor Skipsey's concern about the north side of the building. It is quite massive and imposing. And there was a suggestion or a plan previously where there was a green space at the back of the building, and now the green space has been moved to the front of the building and is deemed to be a private courtyard for only the residents of the building. I don't know that that courtyard, the way that it's laid out, would be used very much. It's essentially a semi-public space. It's on the street. I don't think that it would be used much by residents. So to help break up the building, the north facade, and to make a green space more usable, it might be a better idea to bring it back to the north side of the building. And we also did have concerns about the northeast corner in particular, because that's right by the street and very imposing. So maybe that would be a better place for the green space. And I also am curious, Director Sales mentioned that the developer is hoping to purchase the lane to the north of the property. But my question would be, is the project contingent upon that happening?
Thank you. Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you. So the project does depend on the acquisition of the laneway.
Thank you. Well, we don't have specific heights yet, so I can't ask my other question, but that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
I'd like to add on to number 2, G.
We'll get to number 2 after we pass the first one. That's a separate, it'll be separate motion.
Separate, okay.
Yeah. Councillor Harrison.
Oh, and just one last thing too. I know some people have said for multifamily, why are they doing 2 bedrooms? Forgive me, that's where a lot of the demand is. I know when I got one of my COVID vaccines, there's the nurse who was giving me the shot was inquiring about the affordable housing in Railway. She said, well, I'd love to have a 2-bedroom so when my kids visit, and I was like, well, I'm not sure affordable housing building, you'll get 2 bedrooms. But talking to the folks who built East Village about their experience with East Village, apparently the 1-bedrooms took a lot longer to sell, and the rentals took a lot longer to rent. So a lot of folks, even though they're single, do actually prefer 2 bedrooms. So that is, ironically, the demand in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Anyone opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 2, Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Number 2 would request that prior to any consideration of the bylaws, there'd be additional information provided, and it's listed there, A through F. Thank you.
Thank you. Would someone care to make the motion? Councillor Young, Councillor Harrison, discussion. Councillor Young.
I'd like to add item G to ask for confirmation on whether the 3,000 square feet that was mentioned to Flowerstone, that they would have free rent in usage of that commercial space. So I'd like to see if it's confirmed or not.
I know the proponents are here, but this is not the time to provide that input. Well, through staff, you can certainly provide that input. So that's an addition, that's an amendment to this, the motion that's on the floor. So on the amendment to add a G, and Mr. Councillor Young explained what that was. Is there a seconder for that?
I was a second for debate. I'm actually not over it, but I do want to have 2 seconds on debate on that.
Sure. So Councillor Harrison seconded the amendment. Go ahead.
And just the reason I'm not going to vote for it is that I feel really awkward if we start saying which nonprofit gets the space. There's a lot of really worthy nonprofits out there, and while I have no problem with Flowerstone getting space, I think that's wonderful use, that'd be great, I don't want to start putting conditions on who gets it for how much, and it has ramifications for the whole project. Also, because the commercial revenue, I think because they've basically scaled down the number of units from 57 to 40, that's a lot of money. So they might need that revenue to make the project viable. So I'd encourage them to offer it below market rates to flowers, to whichever nonprofit they prefer. But I just don't feel comfortable directing it as council direction for a specific nonprofit at a specific value. I just think that's sort of overstepping on a commercial project.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Vander, and then back to Councillor Young.
Thank you. I also will not be in favor of that. I don't think that's really part of this process. And also just point out that there is space both on the ground level and on the parking level. So there are two areas that are commercial space, not just one. I don't think they're tied together from what I can see. But I don't think that that's in the purview of what we're discussing right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vander, Councillor Young.
I just want to mention again that as liaison to Flowerstone, there was correspondence between the developer and Flowerstone mentioning that they would have free space of 3,000 square feet to have their second clinic to be open there. So it was a letter that was promised out there. So I just want confirmation before it goes to second reading that is a yes or a no.
Thank you. On the amendment, further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion failed. Thank you. On the main motion, any other discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Got to get my hand up faster. Still not doing it right. I'm just wondering if some of the points that we raised today can also be amended or included. I don't think it has to be in that motion, but just that the proponents have heard them and will take them into consideration.
Sure. I think Mr. Sales took copious notes, so they'll have the discussion with the proponent. Councillor Harrison.
The only other thing, just for timing, is should we make any mention of the APC once those studies are completed? I'm just thinking, should we say something when those studies are done, also schedule something for the APC as well? But I don't know if there's a specific design element we want them to address, and it might be peremptory, maybe on the next reading. Yeah, actually, I see Councillor Skipsey nodding her head, and I'd actually agree now that I think of it. Because we do have a bit of a bare bones set of drawings right now, and I don't feel comfortable saying, go to the APC and just talk about stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah, just never mind.
Okay, thank you. So further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. The next one is the Woodside Crescent, and there are already a motion on the floor. I'm just going to ask anybody in the gallery to speak to this item. Thank you. Then there's a recommendation. Could I have a mover for the recommendation? Oh, we don't, sorry, I just said we don't need a mover. So are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Then the 3022 Island Highway West. Mr. Sales.
Thank you, Mayor Westbrook. The next two agenda items relate to a property at 3022 Island Highway West. They have applied for a development variance permit and a development permit. This property has been the subject of council consideration before, so this is a new revised application that has both different design elements for the development permit and also different variance requests. So I'm going to speak first to the variances that are requested. So the subject property is on the Island Highway. This would be the water up here. This is the bank behind it. The proposal is to do one level of parkade with 3 residential levels above it. The proposed variance is going from 7.5 meters to 11.44 meters. I would note that we have had some discussions in previous meetings about the fact that 11 meters is a more realistic baseline for anything involving multi-residential development, so that will be the subject of future council consideration. So, you know, I certainly think of this more as a variance from 11 to 11.44, not so much 7.5. 7.5 was never a realistic reference for for this type of a development. So this is a cross-section, and there's details in your package, so if you can look at it in more detail, but it just shows how the proposed development interacts with the steep bank behind it. Essentially, it does cut in there on the back. They already do have advice from a geotechnical engineer as to the feasibility of their proposed bank stabilization strategy, and that would be the subject of more work if it proceeds to the building permit phase. So once again, this shows parkade plus residential on the top. The recommendation from staff today is to issue a development variance permit. However, we did provide notice to the neighbors within 100 meters of the property. So without the benefit of public input, we'll hold back on the recommendation for a moment and hear what the public has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sales. Anyone in the gallery would like to speak to this item? Okay, Councillor, yes, there was a reluctant hand going up.
Other one.
My name is Joyce Callinger, and I reside at 493 Crescent Road West, which is located above the proposed development. My husband, Ron Everard, and I have both submitted a note to council saying that we will not object to the variance permit.
Thank you. Anyone else in the gallery? Council, any comments, questions about so far the presentation? Councillor Harrison?
So we did get some correspondence literally this morning. I did sort of go through it. And there is just one piece of correspondence from a Scott Hall, which arrived on Monday. And he just had a question about irrigation and the construction process, how to make sure that there is slope stabilization maintained through this construction process. Is there anything staff have to comment? He mentions a French drain system. I have no idea what that is, in full disclosure. But is this something where staff have any issues about either the construction process or the irrigation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. Through the chair to Councillor Harrison. Those details are typically addressed during the building permit stage, but just for everyone's understanding, previous iterations of this development had proposed maybe intercepting some of the water at the top of the bank adjacent to the residences above and redirecting it to the bottom so that the water isn't on the bank where it's potentially not ideal. So that is the type of thing discussion would continue, and it would be refined in discussion with their geotechnical engineer and the town's engineering department. Thank you.
It's a good one to leave to the professionals. Thank you. So any further comments on this? Councillor Skipsey.
So I just want clarification that if we go ahead and do this development variance permit and then potentially the next one, then that's it for council, and then the project would proceed, and there's nothing else really that council, no other decision-making points.
Thank you. Mr. Sales?
Thank you. That is correct. So if council gives these two permits, then they have a lot of work to do in the background before they actually submit the building permit application, including the due diligence for geotechnical work that we've discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sales. Motion to approve the development variance permit. Councillor Vander, Councillor Harrison, discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. And then the development permit. Councillor Harrison, Councillor Skipsey, discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Just for the, just because this is an area which has seen some issues in the past with the bank, would there be any extra demand on staff to just check the work site, or is this basically be a bonded professional who has the insurance to do the work? But I just think for the sake of the folks who are directly above the work site, would there be anything where the town might be reaching out to them just to let them know what's going on during that process, or would that be something for the proponent? Just because there's a little bit extra degree of care, I think, with this project as it gets built. Once it's done, we do have old geotech reports saying it function like a retaining wall. It makes the banks more stable, and it's a good thing. But I just understand during construction, there was a couple pieces of correspondence, arrived really early, so I did read them. And a couple people did mention, like, during construction, how do you make sure it's safe? And I know you sort of mentioned we'll get to that, but just sort of for the public's benefit, if this isn't coming back to us.
Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. So once again, outside the scope of what we're talking about, but just for everyone's understanding, complex projects like this, they have engineering work that goes into the interim construction phase as well as the final design. So in other words, the engineer will have several stages of stabilization plan. Like, this is what we do during construction to make sure that nothing slips, and then we do this for the long-term solution. There's often phases because they're very well aware that you can't just start digging into the bank and, you know, cross your fingers until you have the real solution in place. That wouldn't work. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Councillor Vander Valk.
Thank you. I know in a couple of previous meetings regarding this, we did talk about stabilization through tree planting. I don't know if there's any discussion at this point about that, or we just take them at their word that they'll plant some trees to stabilize.
Rules about that. Mr. Sales.
Thank you. So there is a landscape plan that's included with the development permit application, and it does include some planting, but the bank is largely vegetated right now, and, you know, you don't want to strip it and replant it anew necessarily. So whatever is done on the upper portion of the bank is likely to be a phased process, right? So managing the vegetation over time for long-term stability.
Okay, go ahead.
And also, if you could refresh my memory, this will be in phases, or are they planning to do the whole foundation? And
do you know if it's in phases?
Through the chair, we don't know at this time. The development permit or development variance permit isn't specific. That's worked out in the building permit phase.
Okay. Councillor Skipsey.
Well, actually, I never thought of that, but that does concern me a little bit because we have seen things drag on. I think the College Inn site is a good example of one where it kind of got away on us. So should there be a requirement to have it done in a certain time frame?
Mr. Sales.
Thank you. Through the chair, it's likely outside the scope of both the development variance permit and the development permit. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Good discussion, good questions, good points. I really appreciate that, because this is a site that the town at the time sold. I think it was in '84 or so, for almost $500,000, $489,000, to help pay for the Memorial Golf Course. So selling land to buy a golf course is not new to Qualicum Beach. Next item is the, sorry, I have to put my glasses on. The covenant discharge on 365 First Avenue West. Mr. Sales.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Westbrook. The town has received correspondence from the new owner of a property at 365 First Avenue West. And this is not the type of a request that council considers very often, so I'm just going to give a little bit more context on the background leading up to this. So this was the subject of a zoning amendment application. So currently there's one house on a relatively large lot, and that applicant applied to the town because they wanted to develop what is currently essentially their front yard facing First Avenue into, at that time, they initially proposed a threeplex. Through discussion with council ultimately approved a single-family dwelling with a suite. So they could retain the existing house and then build a new house with a suite on what's labeled here as proposed Lot B. So as the situation unfolded, it turned out that several months later, the province introduced Bill 44, which required that every parcel now allow 4 dwellings per lot. So the unexpected result of both those things happening is that during the zoning amendment with the town, the town required that they put a restrictive covenant on proposed Lot B that limits it to 2 dwellings, one of which is a suite, so they can't strata title either of them. And ironically, the portion of the property that was not proposed for any development because of Bill 44 and the subsequent zoning changes actually has more density than the remainder. So the land that they successfully took through the zoning amendment process now has less density than the neighboring properties. So they've asked that the town reconsider and discharge the covenant on there so that, you know, if they do proceed with the subdivision, which requires removing that house, then they would have the same density potential on proposed Lot B as they have on proposed Lot A, as any of the neighbors have, which is the R2 zone in this case, which is, actually, hold on, yeah, R2 zone. So it has the 4 units per lot. So staff are recommending that the covenant be discharged because of the conflict with the provincial recommendations and regulations. It's a bit awkward. However, I do want to note that you know, the balancing argument would be that because there's no plans in front of council before you at this time, it could be something that you want to wait until there's a specific plan. So the staff are recommending discharge out of principle because having something that conflicts with provincial regulation is not the ideal situation. However, recognizing that the alternative that council could consider would be deferring this until there is a set of plans actually proposed by the proponent. Thank you.
Thank you. So you're suggesting that we could wait with this until we get actually a proposal for what they plan to do?
Thank you. So staff's recommendation is discharge. However, since the time that the memo was drafted, we thought more about what an alternative would be if council was going to proceed with an alternative. So that alternative would be that, you know, council would invite them to make an application, and then council would consider the discharge at that time.
Okay, I'm going to move the deferral and wait till we have an application. So that's my motion. It's not that one, but it's to defer this until we get a proposal from the owner. Have any seconder? Councillor Skipsey seconding. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
So this is the specific type of covenant that the province has basically said we are going to get rid of through legislation. So where are we with that legislation? Because I know this has popped up previously in Metro Vancouver where there were areas of residential which had a covenant saying thou shalt only build single-family homes. So is this even an enforceable covenant at present?
Mr. Seals.
Thank you. Through the chair, very, very interesting and topical question that I think a lot of people in the province are asking. As of right now, the covenant is enforceable. Could the province make some sort of a unilateral change to make these covenants unenforceable? Well, I'll leave that to lawyers to work out, but you know, certainly they've given us surprises over the last few years. So if they decide to go that way, then we'll respond accordingly. They've also indicated that they're looking at building schemes. And, you know, so there's a few things on their radar in terms of the province identifying potential barriers to redevelopment. Covenants are on their radar, and as are building schemes, but as of right now, they're both enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vander.
So just for clarity, please, the proposed Lot A and proposed Lot B, have they been actually subdivided at this point?
No.
Okay. And Director Sales mentioned that if we remove that covenant, then proposed Lot B could have 4 units, 4 titled units, as proposed Lot A can at this point. But
let's answer that one, because that's a big question. Go ahead, Ms. Sales.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Valk is correct.
They could have 4 units on A and 4 units on B?
Correct.
If we allow the subdivision. Councillor Ms. Sales?
Thank you for clarifying. I should have said that. The subdivision district is already in place. Council already, you know, there's no decision required in order to subdivide. The question is what the land use is permitted on the remainder that gets subdivided, and that's restricted by way of that covenant.
Okay. Councillor Vander.
so then in essence, where there was 1 single-family lot, there's going to be 8 titled properties if we agree to remove the covenant.
Yeah. Mr. Seals?
Thank you. I don't want to presuppose what will be, but I can say that the maximum density on the 2 lots, if they were subdivided, with the covenant would be 6 units, without the covenant would be 8.
Right, I just want to confirm that it hasn't been subdivided, correct? Correct, okay. With Councillor Skipsey.
Right, but my question, I guess, is around the subdivision, and I can't remember whether that required council approval or whether it was just straightforward, if we could, because if we knew then what we know now, you know, it might not have been approved. So I just, yeah, would like to know whether or not it is a standard subdivision or whether we actually made the decision on that. I don't remember. Thank you.
Councillor, Mr. Seals.
Thank you. I would have to go back and look as well. I think when it was rezoned, the minimum parcel size was adjusted so that the subdivision is now permitted.
Okay, so that makes me even more inclined to say, let's wait until you see the plans for this property. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, so I do disagree with this just because we basically have a unique zone entire unto itself on this property then as a result of this, as opposed to every other property surrounding it being R2. Also, ironically, the council decision to prevent duplexes, when this land was originally incorporated into the town in 1957, every single lot was in a specific duplex residential zone. And as opposed to single family residential, they actually had 2 different designations in 1957. So I just think this is on collector, it's on first. This should have slightly more density than a single family home, even if there's maybe a carriage house out back. So I just think that when you have every lot around it able, subject to the same thing, we could say, well, then maybe they could build 4 units. I'm not sure you'd build 4 units there. I haven't seen a lot of that. We have one project of a 4-unit build, I think, in town by the old fire hall. I'm trying to think of any others. The one where you approved 2 4 units, that property is just sold or up for sale. So I just think this is probably going to be yet another duplex, which I think is an appropriate use for the lot, which is why I'm not a big fan of this covenant. But if at the end of the day, when they bring something forward, we have the same conversation, we have the same conversation. But yeah, I just don't support this as a matter of principle.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the neighboring properties, which I think are similar size, they could have 4 units, not 8, correct?
Thank you. That is correct. The size of the neighboring lots is virtually identical, and I did confirm that through the zoning amendment, council had reduced the minimum parcel size in the last zoning amendment. Thank you.
But the neighboring properties, I don't know if they're all that size, but the neighbors, for sure, they could build 4 units as it stands. So by doing what we're doing here, we're saying we're okay with 4 units on that lot, but not 8. I think that's the discussion. And we went through this when we approved with the covenant, this location, with the neighbors who were concerned about having that many units. And so we thought we'll save the house and you can build a secondary suite there and have 2 units on what is now called proposed Lot B. And that's 4 units. So I think this is reasonable. And so I support the motion to defer this until we see an actual plan of what the owner plans to do. Further discussion. Councillor Harrison.
Oh, just for clarity, Mr. Sales, we're jogged by memory. I believe the original decision point was on a duplex on what was proposed Lot B. I think that was what brought to council was, do we do a duplex there? And then it was rejected for this 2 units max, one of which has to be essentially a secondary suite.
Mr. Sales?
Thank you. That is correct. A duplex was proposed and it was adjusted to just be a house and a suite. One thing I would note is that this lot, like if you're looking at it in comparison to the neighboring parcels, it has less flexibility than the neighboring parcels now because of the fact that not only is the number of units restricted on the front, but it has to be exactly that design with a house and a suite. So if council defers it, that is certainly your decision to do so. I would just note that it likely will come back at some point because if they want to have the same flexibility in arranging the 4 units on the lot in the way that they think is appropriate, the covenant would need to be discharged.
Right, and so we'll await the proposal, and it doesn't have to be a detailed architectural plan, but a conceptual plan for us to consider what the future of that property holds. So on the motion, Councillor Harrison.
Oh, just to point out too, we do have correspondence saying as a duplex or triplex is the intent.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Young, Councillor Herron opposed. Thank you. And the next item is, how many pickleball players are left in the room? Mr. Sales. Oh, we have one? Good. Mr. Sales or Mr. Amco. Go ahead, Mr. Codby.
So, we returned Playco to provide a Class B estimate to construct the four pickleball courts near the dog park that's on Garden Road. So, and the Class B estimate is more accurate, just it's better for budgetary. So the full package itself, we have the full courts, it's fenced, we have parking, gravel parking, and also engineering drawing. We put it all together, the cost estimate is $330,000. So our current financial plan, it does allow the town to contribute $85,000 and the pickleball club $85,000 as well. So the estimated funding gap is $160,000 that are required to be able to proceed with the full scope. So the full scope will be the courts, the parking, and the drawing. So there is, let you know a bit of background, there is a $61,000 is being held by Raymond James Canada Foundation, and that could form part of the contributions of the $85,000. But that donations needs a firm town commitment by May 2026, and also completion of this project in the end of 2026. We have received, since that report was written, received some communication with the foundation and the club. So the foundation has asked for clarity on the town's plan because the fund has been held since last year. The Pickleball Club is prepared to increase the original $85,000. However, there is limitations for any increase for that fundraising. So staff recommendation is to retain the Garden Road as the preferred location, but request Pickleball Club to continue fundraising and exploring other funding sources before we move forward with the next step, which can be the detailed design and construction. So there is some alternative options we presented as part of the report. Consider alternative locations for the pickleball courts. We can proceed with the design and construction, but with the increase the town contribution, funding contribution. The several scenario we did provide would be increasing the town contribution to $165,000 to complete all the work at a 50-50 cost share. So the expectation for the Pickleball Club is to contribute $165,000 as well. We can exclude the parking from the cost share and result the contribution of $125,000 for each party. The other one would be increasing the town contribution to $245,000. That will be the town will fund the additional cost, the full gap between them. Yeah. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions to the Councillor Skipsey?
Just some clarification on the last point you made about the town. It would be funded from the Canada Community Building Fund. Is that money that we already have, or is that money already allocated for something else? I'm just curious.
Staff, Mr. Codby, go ahead.
For this question, I would need to confirm with finance and bring the answer back.
Okay. Councillor, Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I do see the director's signature on this. So if it was put forward as an option, I would assume that that was money already in hand. If we do have that incorrect, I will circle back to council to clarify.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Oh, just to clarify too, I believe that used to be referred to as the gas tax. They've given it a new name in the past few years, but I think that's the same funding stream. But yeah, it's very, how should I say it? it's funds we really like to hold on to if we can, because it can be used for a wide variety of things. So I'm not saying this is the worst use of it, but I'd just be very curious to maybe get a report on what else we could be using it on, just because I know there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of demands on our budgetary sources of funding. So I'd just be cautious about making that decision today without looking at what are some of the other alternatives for those funds.
Thank you. I would support the idea of leaving the parking area alone, that $80,000 tab, and encourage the club, the people who want this, the pickleball players want this. Once we have a sign up at basically the dog off leash area across by the airport, future home of 4 pickleball courts. If you want to see this come to reality, there is a fundraising opportunity. And I also have heard from at least one service club who is willing to contribute. And there may be an opportunity for one of our council members who attends that service club to see if they're willing to participate in this, because this is a very high-profile location, right by the airport, which the Rotary Club also had a big start at when we first got to the airport. It was the Rotary Club, Mr. Wells, who was a Rotarian and the first mayor of Qualicum Beach. He helped build that airport with his bulldozer, his equipment. So there's a strong connection with the Rotary Club in that area. They may want to consider supporting this facility because a lot of people apparently play pickleball court, and they have some of them, I think, have deep pockets but short arms, and so we need to encourage them to raise some more money, because as a council, I would be willing to say, we'll kick it up $40,000, but you got to do the same. So at this point, I'm not sure what would be an appropriate motion to deal with this. I definitely think the location is the right place. And so I think we can pass those first part of the recommendation, and then direct staff on the cost-sharing formula later. So could I have a motion for the staff recommendation for the first 2 items? Councillor Skipsey, Councillor Harrison, discussion. All in favor? Good. So we settled that, and then provide direction to staff approach for cost sharing. I just mentioned that we need to let the pickleball people know that we're interested and we want to support it. We have $85,000 put aside. And that was based on the original proposal, which was $470,000, which was, of course, very optimistic. I also think this is a much better site. But having a sign there, encouraging them to identify opportunities for fundraisers and perhaps do some demonstrations, not in our Glassfoot Square, but a demonstration of how pickleball is played at some other facility where people can say, hey, I'd like to try this. So and since I now know we have a pickleball player in the gallery, perhaps we could pass that on to all the enthusiasts that we wanted to go ahead with this. I really like to see this happen. But we also have to be concerned about taxes and how we spend our money. As Councillor Harrison said, there may be other things that might take priority. Councillor Skipsey.
Yeah, I think what you were describing is the alternative 5, where council consider excluding parking from the cost-sharing formula to address the $250,000 instead of the total Class D estimate for 330, resulting in a contribution of $125,000 from each party.
Yes.
So that would be the goal.
It's option 5. So, and there's no motion on the floor, is there? No. So if you would like to make that as a motion, 5. We got 2 hands up, Councillor Skipsey and Councillor Vander. Discussion. Councillor Harrison.
And if this is where we allocate $40,000-ish from the essentially gas tax fund, that's a lot more reasonable. I just think those funds are so desperately needed for the basic infrastructure of water, sewer, roads that I'm loath to spend it on recreation.
No, you're right. So it's now option 5, which says it will match your funding if you can raise it. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the Director of Finance was confident he would have a funding source for that if Council did choose option 5. So we'll report back on where that final source is. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So on option 5, and Ms. Svensson, sorry to bother you, is it moved and seconded? Okay. Further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And that concludes, I think, the regular agenda, but Pardon?
Number 4, I think, is...
Okay, and you just mentioned that. Ms. Varela, didn't you say this?
I have two clarifications from the meeting that I'd like to loop back with once council is finished with pickleball, Your Worship.
But didn't you just mention on number 4 of this one, not this one, on our agenda package, staff provides a report to council to a future meeting once confirmation received. This is about the funding that you mentioned earlier?
Yes, we'd also have to work with the pickleball group, Your Worship. So I don't believe we have any action on 4 yet, so it would be prudent.
Okay. Councillor Skipsey moved. What are you moving, Councillor Skipsey? Number 4, and it's Councillor Vander Valk seconding. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you. And Ms. Varela, you had another clarification, and circle back to that other item.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it actually looped back to Councillor Harrison's report out on the portfolio. So there was concern expressed about interpretation of assistance to business. And I do want to confirm for both council and the public that when it comes to interpretation on restrictions of the authority of council laid out in legislation, staff ensures council has factual information on interpretation of the community charter and other relevant acts for their decision making on any matter of business. So whether it was one Councillor Harrison was directly referring to or another matter of business, I think that's where you really have to lean on staff, and if staff has to lean on legal counsel, we make sure you have the best and, factual information for your decision making. So just a measure of comfort for council and the public. And I also want to apologize. I misspoke, read the funding source for the needs assessment. It's being funded from the Community Growth Reserve, not the Strategic Initiative Reserve. And while it was a strategic initiative of council, it qualifies as part of the capital cost of the project should council choose to advance that in the future. So a reserve was used that qualifies for such a capital project. So just additional clarification for council, Your Worship. Thank you for the indulgence.
Much appreciated. So with that, I think we can adjourn. I think we have no other business, so a motion to adjourn. Councillor Vander Valk, Councillor Skipsey, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, staff. There was a lot of items on here, and we completed a number of projects to move forward, so thank you for all the work you put in. Council, very good discussion, good points raised, and the gallery, thank you for being here to witness all this. Thank you. Motion is we are adjourned.